My job was causing me so much stress.
I felt disconnected and frightened.
I felt so isolated.
I was beginning to feel trapped, depressed. I never expected that to happen to me.
We think nobody else feels the pain that we feel, but that is so untrue.
It's good to be able to talk about it.
I was able to seek help. I found it from Team Wellness.
It's a sense of freedom.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
I work 10 hours a day to come home to this mess. What do you even do all day?
You know it's not easy.
How's it feel to be a failure as a wife and a mother?
Stop! Mary! I'm leaving you.
You aren't going anywhere. Look at me when I talk to you.
Welcome to My Healthy Mind. I'm Elizabeth Atkins. By now, most people have heard of the problem of domestic abuse. It's all over the news. It's in every community, in every state in the land. It may even be in your home. But while you may know more than ever about the causes and prevalence of domestic abuse, what you don't know may hurt you. Today I have with me a survivor of domestic abuse whose story goes beyond the all too common violence to include a conspiracy of shame and secrecy perpetrated by cultural and religious tradition. Mona, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Please tell us an overview of the domestic abuse that you suffered from.
I lived in an abusive relationship for 18 years of my life and experienced different forms of domestic violence, from verbal to emotional, psychological, physical, financial, just about every type of domestic violence over the course of the 18 years. Again, a lot happened during the 18 years. You know, the abuse started from day one, the day that we got engaged. So he took me, after we went to the mosque and we did the religious marriage, he took me to an alley. My friends were waiting for me at the house and my cousins, and he took me there and he started beating me up in an alley. And I remember driving down Tireman, going west. He was driving and I tried to throw myself out of the car. And he pulled me by my hair and he said, "Where do you think you're going?"
And you were married and you had children. So
yeah, so I was met him at age 17. By 18, I was married with a child. By 19, I had my second child.
So tell us a few instances of what type of abuse occurred.
He was very controlling, very violent, physically abusive. He would put me in a corner for hours while he held a gun, pacing back and forth, telling me about how he would, kill me, how he would dismember my body if I was to tell anybody about the violence. He beat me when I was pregnant. I remember 3 days before I delivered my second child, the neighbors had called the police and EMS arrived, I remember at that time, and I was almost like 8 months pregnant at that time because I had my kids delivered preterm. And I remember blood gushing down my face. And there was two gentlemen who came to the home and, asking me what happened. And I told them that I fell. And they're like, you don't want to go to the hospital? And I'm like, no, because I was scared. And they're like, okay, then just sign. And while in the next room, my mom sat on the couch where she hid the gun that he was threatening to kill me with. It was because of the shame. My mom did not want me to get divorced because of the shame that would bring to the family. It was I grew up in a very conservative home. And there's other instances where he, would physically abuse the children. One that kind of stuck with me was when the boys were 5 and 6 years old, and we had a birthday party in the home. It was winter time, and the boys started, arguing over their gifts and who would take what. And he had taken them upstairs while we still had guests in the home. And I was very, very anxious. I couldn't wait till the guests leave, but I was scared at the same time to go upstairs. But they were quiet. I didn't hear any noise. As soon as the guests left, I ran upstairs to find my 2 boys naked and their hands against the wall, standing on 1 foot. And he had beaten them up so bad that their bodies were bruised. I had kept them home from school for I can't remember how many days, and the school kept calling, and I would say, oh, they're not feeling well, they're sick, and the school would call every day to check up on them. And then finally I decided that I couldn't keep them home any longer, that I had to send them to school. It was winter time, so I was able to, to layer them up. They had a turtleneck on. But later on that afternoon, I get a call from the school telling me that they needed to speak with me, that they had talked to the kids and undressed the kids, and that there was marks all over the kids' bodies. So I went to school, and they sat me down, and we had a talk about that I was in an unhealthy relationship, and obviously there's abuse, and that I needed to get out. And I at that time told them I would work on it, and left, and that was the end of it.
So they didn't call Child Protective Services?
No, they did not.
Why?
At that time, they thought that I think they thought they were doing me a favor. I was always involved in this with the school activities. I was always there for my kids, and I truly feel that that's what they thought at the time.
So other times when the abuse occurred, you did end up in the ER, the emergency room.
Yes.
And was any intervention ever provided for you at that time?
So during the course of the 18 years, there was 3 places that I would go after being abused. One was the ER, where often I would get there and say that I fell, or come up with some excuse. I would go to my family, who would then just send me back to the abuser, or I would go to our faith community, in which I was told over and over again that a good Muslim woman protects her family, and it's her job to keep the family together, and that if I just obey him, then I wouldn't have any of these problems.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about these cultural beliefs and this acute sense of shame if anything were revealed? Because that's what was keeping you so quiet and afraid to expose what was happening.
I grew up, I came to this country when I was a year old. Grew up in the Dearborn area, which is the largest concentration of Arab Americans. It's pretty much a conservative, tight-knit community, and when I was experiencing domestic violence, it was back in the early 1990s. At that time, domestic violence was more seen as a family issue, keeping the family together, and also it's more than just, when you think about marriage and divorce, you got to understand within the Muslim community that there's the religious process in place where you have a religious marriage. And when you enter that contract, that it can only be broken if the man agrees to divorce you. So when I would go to the religious leaders and beg and plead about being abused, to get out of the abusive relationship, beg and plead for them to help me, to get me and my kids out of that situation, they would just tell me that there's a word that they often would share with me that I hated, sabura, spuri, be patient. That's all I was told, is be patient. And they would, again, manipulate me to think that this is the religion, and that somehow that this abuse was my fault, and that a good Muslim woman must remain in the marriage and protect her family and keep her, kids and family together.
Let's talk about the psychology of your marriage. Your husband had all the power, essentially, and so talk to us about how he was able to control you with fear and violence.
He was a prominent member of the community, seen as being very powerful. At some point in his life, you know, he had a lot of money and, you know, had an influence over people in the community. And it was very, very difficult because he would use, you know, more of the culture and the religious aspect of the threats that he would make, you know. I'm going to go say this and this about you to the community, and I'm going to go tell your family, you know, make up lies to your family, and just about how, you know, how I'm being portrayed.
Talk about the toll that took on you, the constant fear, the looking down, the not looking people in the eye, all the things, the toll it took on you when you were undergoing this abuse.
You know, when I look back, you know, psychologically, you know, the physical abuse is just one aspect. Those are just bruises and marks, and if you survive them, they go away. It was the torture, the psychological, mental, and emotional abuse that I endured during those 18 years. I was crippled by fear. I could not think straight. I could not concentrate. You know, I look back, the only thing that kept me going was my faith in God and my children. I knew that I had to survive. I knew I had to stay alive to take care of my kids. And just psychologically, I was, you know, my body would shake all the time. Even my speech was affected. I, you know, stutter all the time. I couldn't say 2 words. And it's like, where do I go? Where do you start? You know, my family, who many tried to help me, and, you know, but I think the major role was my mom, and in preventing my other siblings from helping me. And then the community, you know, the shame and the community turning against me as I'm not, you know, a good Muslim woman. You know, I'm causing this abuse. It's something I did or something I said. And it was horrible, and I think a lot of people don't understand. There's not a single abused woman out there that wants to remain in that situation. Nobody. But the fact is, it's so hard to get out once you're in, and the fear, you know, the fear of what may happen. You know, there was so many times I wanted to pick up the phone and call the police, but he would tell me, oh, if you call the police, oh, here's my gun, I'm just gonna kill him. And that to me would just, you know, scare me to death, you know. And then if family wanted to help me, he would want to threaten them. And then now I'm trying to protect myself, I'm trying to protect my children, but now I have to protect my family, I have to protect my friends, therefore isolating me from society. I had no one and nowhere to go.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Wellness Center has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan.
No one should ever have to feel so alone.
Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery.
Despite what you've been through, you can overcome.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
Though most people think of abusive relationships as being about violence, at their core they are, in fact, always about an imbalance of power and control. Abusers are actually weak. They abuse to exert control and start by controlling small things, then escalating to controlling every aspect. Domestic violence covers a wide spectrum of physical, psychological, economic, and sexual abuse. It might not be easy to recognize that you're in an abusive relationship at first. Here are some key indicators to look for. First, your abuser threatens to hurt or actually does hurt you or your children. Second is isolation. They prevent you from going to work or school, seeing family members or friends. Next is jealousy. They act possessive or constantly accuse you of being unfaithful. Fourth, They blame you for their violent behavior or tell you that you deserve it. Fifth, even in married relationships, your abuser forces you to have sex or engage in sexual acts against your will. Finally, there's the abuse triad. It starts with tension and an argument. Then there's the explosion of violence. Then there's the honeymoon phase, where your abuser apologizes, they promise to change, and they offer you gifts. It might also be difficult to recognize that someone else is in an abusive relationship. Here are some key indicators to look for if you want to help. First, while they were once outgoing and cheerful, that person gradually becomes reserved and distant. Next, they drop out of activities that they usually enjoyed. They start canceling appointments or meetings with you at the last minute. They're often late to work or for other appointments. They show excessive privacy concerning their personal life or the person with whom they're in a relationship. They begin isolating themselves by cutting off contacts with friends and family members. The best way to get out from under the scourge of domestic violence is by breaking the power of the abuser, the power of your secret shame, and by letting someone know what's going on. Speak up, and the truth can heal you.
So you have a message. People would always ask you, why didn't you try to leave?
Often the question that many people will ask is, why do you stay? Why don't you just get out? But instead, what they really should be asking is, what can I do to help her get out? As a society, we should not just sit around and know and watch people getting abused and thinking that it's not our responsibility. It is our responsibility. Domestic violence is a crime and it's a public health concern. And it's no longer just a family matter. It affects each and every person in our community. And we need to do everything we can to help survivors get out of those situations. The number one thing I think in all my years of doing this work now is formulating a support system. That's the number one thing. I have counseled doctors and lawyers and people in all different kinds of professions that even when they found themselves in a domestic violence situation, felt hopeless. And you need a support system. That's the number one thing. And then start thinking and planning, what is that going to look like for you? Every situation is different. Every experience is different. And finding support is the first step. And after finding support, start thinking about, who and where can you go, getting people to advocate on your behalf. Going through the court system is a very frightening experience, and a lot of individuals out there, don't know how to navigate the legal system, don't even know their rights. So having an advocate will help, go through that process. But also as they're thinking about their planning, what are some things that are important to them? I always, highly recommend that, if they have to take out important documents like their social security card, driver's license, insurance cards, house documents, passports, medication, anything that once they leave they can't go back and get. And a lot of times, I recommend that they get like a safety box or security box or something to start putting things away slowly. And what statistics show that, survivors go back 8 times to the abusive relationship before they actually leave. I would say that it took me 800 times of going back and forth over the course of the 18 years. And so the message is to never give up, and if you don't succeed the first time while trying to get out, you just keep trying. I found my way at the doorsteps of Access, and it's there where my life began and hope started. Access is the largest Arab American community nonprofit center in the nation. We have over 100 different programs. I oversee the Community Health and Research Center, so my focus is more on the health initiatives. And so We offer a number of different programming, and the VOCA, which is the Victims of Crime program, happens to be one of the 70 programs that I oversee at Access. And this program, again, was designed to help support and empower survivors of domestic violence, rape, hate crimes, child abuse, and neglect, and sexual assault, among other criminal activities.
When you talked about being ready for change, can you talk about deserving? Because something must have clicked inside you.
I wanted to live again. You know, that's my readiness. As I mentioned, I felt like I was dead inside. I was numb. And I just wanted freedom. And I wanted it so badly. I started envisioning what it would be like to go walk into a home, a room of silence, peace, you know, and that's what helped me too, is to have that vision. There was this video in my head. Everyone during the course of the 18 years that told me I can do it, I deserve better. The smiles, the kind gestures, anything would play. People that I had not seen in years, you know, just popped up in this video. And that video gave me hope, and it gave me strength that yes, I can do this. And I did. But Access wanted me to speak out. And we hold an annual domestic violence fundraising dinner where 100% of the donations go straight to helping survivors rebuild their lives, regardless of what that need may be. And I got up there, and for the first time in a room that was packed with probably about 600-700 people, and I stood up there and I said, I am a survivor. That was the first night that I slept in years. It felt so good to just get it out. You know, I'm free. You know, that's what it felt like. I'm finally free.
So Mona, what's your message to a woman who might be watching today and is in an experience like you had in the past, where she's trapped in a domestically violent life with a husband or a boyfriend? What's your advice to her?
Not to give up, and that her life is worth fighting for, and never give up. And put a support system in place. Start thinking about what leaving is going to look like, because if they start visualizing it, they will get there. They might not succeed the first time or the second time or the 10th time, but eventually they will succeed. And I can tell you, Elizabeth, I would have never, ever, ever dreamed of being first being alive, and second, being where I'm at in my life. I'm incredibly happy. You know, I sometimes sit back and I'm like, I'm alive. I did it. I did it. And if I can do it, anybody can do it.
If you have experienced a physical or sexual assault, you may feel many emotions: fear, confusion, anger, or even being numb and not feeling much of anything. You may feel guilt or shame over being assaulted. Some people try to minimize the abuse or hide it by covering bruises and making excuses for the abuser. If you've been physically or sexually assaulted or abused, know that it is not your fault. Getting help for assault or abuse can prevent long-term mental health effects and other health problems such as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem. The only way to break the cycle of domestic violence is to take action. Start by telling someone about the abuse, whether it's a friend, loved one, healthcare provider, or other close contact. You can also call National Domestic Violence Hotlines or one of the many local mental health agencies. Remember, no one deserves to be abused.
Thank you for watching today as we explored the violence, shame, and secrecy of domestic abuse. If you'd like to learn more about this or any mental health issue, please visit us at myhealthymind.com. Follow us on Twitter at myhealthymind and on Facebook. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it.
Imagine a world fueled by hope.
A place where what you believe, what you dream,
is within reach.
This is the world we've built at Access.
45.
45.
45.
45.
45.
45 years strong.
Of helping people make their dreams come true.
45 years of empowering and engaging.
At Access, we understand
that if we want to contribute to a just and equitable society,
with the full participation of all, including Arab Americans,
it starts here at home.
From giving families the opportunity to keep a roof over their heads,
to providing every child
with the skills and tools to believe in and secure
a brighter future,
to building healthy, vibrant communities,
to strengthening and growing our economy,
to contributing to the revitalization of Detroit
by placing thousands of people every year in meaningful, stable jobs,
and supporting our entrepreneurs as they start and grow their businesses.
We are moving Michigan forward.
We are not just revitalizing the region.
We are revitalizing communities across America.
From building the capacity of communities to make a difference.
And mobilizing them to speak out against stereotypes and discrimination.
We are amplifying grassroots voices across the U.S. through our National Network for Arab American Communities.
To sharing our narrative with the world through the Arab American National Museum's role as the first and only museum dedicated to documenting the stories of Arab America.
And celebrating the arts, our heritage, and culture.
To demonstrating the power of giving, collectively to improve the lives of others.
Across the U.S. and the world through our community foundation, the Center for Arab American Philanthropy.
We are planting hope.
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 Hope in every corner.
At Access, we understand that to change the world,
we need to change the conditions.
For the person.
For the region.
For the nation.
It's not just about opening doors.
It's about opening hearts.
Today, we celebrate 45 years.
Of changing lives.
Changing communities.
Changing perceptions.
From the neighborhood to the nation.